At the 2024 International Media Conference, the focus has been on crucial issues related to the future of journalism. One much anticipated session is devoted to the challenge of covering China for the international media. How should we report on China? And how should we understand the ever more aggressive actions in the South China Sea and in the West Philippine Sea? Hello, I'm John Nery, and you are in the Public Square. We are on site at the Philippine International Convention Center, and we are joined today by Matthias Kamp, the China correspondent of the Swiss daily New Zürcher Zeitung. He has extensive experience reporting on Asia since the late 1990s, having been based previously in Singapore and then in Beijing, and now since 2021, back in Beijing. Welcome, Matthias, and thank you for joining us in the Public Square.
Hi, hello. Pleasure to be here.
Let me start by asking a question. I'm intrigued. So you had a previous stint in Beijing between 2007 and 2011, and then you went back in 2021. What were the major differences that you saw between the first and the second stints as far as covering China was concerned?
Yeah, I mean, when I started to work that time in late 2006, early 2007, it was like the climate was like all about opening up and making things easier, and the government was really committed to improve working conditions for foreign journalists. So just to give you an example, it was like we didn't have to apply anymore if we wanted to do a trip to the countryside. Before that, you would always have to register with local authorities in the city that you wanted to go there. All this was being done away with. And then, of course, as we know, the Olympics came 2008, exactly. And so they made things even easier. I mean, we would get government officials talking to us. I interviewed 3 ministers, I think, between 2007 and 2011. I reported on the earthquake in Sichuan in 2008. We would interview army people up there in the earthquake region there. We would get close to government officials who came to visit there. So things really were like, we had the feeling is getting a lot better. And then, of course, coming back like 3 years ago, it was we have to say it like this, it was a complete change. It's a complete change now. Now it's become really difficult getting interview partners, even getting accreditation for official events like the National People's Congress or Party Congress, for example. Government officials, almost impossible. Academics like professors, sometimes it works, but now they always have to ask for permission if they're allowed to talk to foreign media. There's these spy issues where the government is suspicious that we could be spies. And then even like easy things like what we call vox pop, like interviewing people in the street, you know, once you start, like in many cases, after a few minutes, police shows up and tries to stop us. So it's been a tremendous change.
The 2000, your first stint, was it all because of the Olympics? Were they opening up because they wanted to show their, best face? Or was there something going on in China at the time?
I think there was more than only the Olympics. Of course, they wanted to show a good face to the outside world and make things easier for foreign reporters in the run-up to the Olympics and during the Olympics. But at that time, I mean, I observed it quite carefully and intensively. I mean, we even had, under the surface, we had discussions about politics and problems in politics. And there was like people debating on weekends about possible political changes and so on. Of course, later they cracked down on this, but the climate was different. Open criticism was possible, even from inside China, from academics, for example, intellectuals. Debate was possible. So it was both. It was the Olympics, I think, and it was like a climate of, I would say a climate of debate and controversies where people would argue about the future course of the country.
In your second stint, was the tighter restrictions, were they because of COVID? I mean, you went there on the second year of the pandemic. Yeah. Was it because of that, or was there something else?
I mean, we could say COVID was served as a very good excuse for the government also to make things more difficult for foreign reporters. They could always say like, okay, we have COVID, sorry, the country is more or less completely locked up, so we can't allow this and we can't allow that. But it was more, I think, I mean, we have to say, since Xi Jinping came to power, they more and more like narrowed our space for maneuvering, for moving. They observing a lot more careful now, like what we're doing. And it's not like before where they would just let us work. Now they like constantly call you in, the foreign ministry, and they want to talk about your reports and what you're doing. So it's not only COVID, it's definitely a different political climate where they're always suspicious of foreign media. So,
of course, you just mentioned the one major difference was, of course, the ascent to power of Xi Jinping. I think your first stint ended just before he took office. Now he's not only chairman of the Communist Party or of the Military Commission, but he's also president and maybe president for life. I mean, they took out the term limits. Is the difference between the leadership now starkly different from the leadership under Hu Jintao?
it is completely different now. I mean, the
Completely
whole system, the whole setup of the leadership has been completely modified or put like upside down. I mean, people always said like the Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao leadership was more like a weak leadership. You could argue it was. Like, I mean, under them there were real problems like especially corruption, the state of the People's Liberation Army, and there were problems. They were like, I think the argument is fair to make that it was a bit weaker government. So when Xi took over in 2012, 2013, he knew what the challenges were, and he had to clean up many things, especially in the army. And corruption was really bad. I observed it with my own eyes. You know, it was a real problem. So what he did, more or less, like concentrated all power only on him, only one person. I mean, today is a one-person rule. Nobody dares to make any decision without approval from him. Is that good? I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I talked to many people just when I came over from Shanghai yesterday. I had a meeting the day before in Shanghai with somebody who's very well connected. He says, like, he doesn't get all the information anymore. He's more or less isolated, and nobody dares to make an important decision because they are scared the decision might be wrong. So to sum it up, the system of the leadership has been completely changed compared to the Hu Jintao area, and I think is a bit of a problem, yeah, because it's all concentrated on one person.
I read something that you had said before, that you had written before, rather, and you said that it is possible to write about business or the economy in a way separate from politics. I mean, there's more to China than just politics, right?
Yeah.
But is it in fact under Xi Jinping possible to separate, you know, like a story about infrastructure or whatever from the political framework?
I don't think it's really possible. I mean, even economic policies is all decided by him. I mean, he has this new economic concept now of the new quality productive forces, and this is all thought out only by him. That is only by him. So whenever you report on the state of the Chinese economy and economic development in China and how the business landscape is changing, you always come back to his person in your reporting, because he thinks out, he develops these concepts, and he makes sure it's being implemented. I mean, we've just seen it last week. He took 2 trips again, one to Qinghai province, the other one to Ningxia province, where he briefs local officials like, you have to implement it like that, you implement it like that. So you cannot really separate it.
Maybe a couple of decades ago, we started hearing a lot about companies such as Alibaba or Tencent. But it seems that the state has taken a greater interest in how these companies are run, and how their sometimes larger than life founders conduct themselves. Um, did that strike you as predictable, that the state would eventually, uh, meddle in these companies' affairs?
I mean, 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, I wouldn't have predicted it would come to this, what it came to. And I mean, the point is, these companies grew very strong,
Okay.
really strong. And then their CEOs and leaders like Jack Ma, they were like pop stars, They became really strong. They were very successful with their businesses. And at some point, the government was not willing to tolerate this anymore, because they became stronger and stronger. And I'm being told that like a story like Jack Ma would not be possible anymore today. Would definitely not be possible. And we saw, I think it started in like 2019, when like government officials, like we take Zhejiang province in the east, Hangzhou, where Alibaba is headquartered, and they would just walk into the office and tell the managers what to do and what not to do. And so they really meddle into their business, and to make sure they don't grow too strong. And then it's like we've seen all these crackdowns on online tutoring, like online business, gaming industry, and so on. So of course, this has over the past few months kind of come to a stop, and there's all this rhetoric out of Beijing now. We need private companies, we need tech companies. But in fact, like people telling me that like it will never be like before, because there's always this perception in their minds, in the managers, where they say, we don't know what will happen tomorrow. Maybe they wake up in Beijing and make another decision where we're not allowed to do this or not allowed to do that anymore. So this dynamism that we've seen before is gone, and it will not come back as we had it before.
Given all of this, how do you report now on China?
How do I report on China? I mean, of course, first of all, I do everything. I do financial markets, business, economics, politics, of course. And what we try to figure out is like, the story is like, where is this country going now with all these challenges, like shrinking population, and the economy is definitely not in a good state, I mean, I do a lot by anecdotal evidence, because the official figures, I'm not so sure if they are really reliable. So I try to make a picture, like make my own picture, how is things. But the thing is, as I said before, it's difficult to get really people talking to you. So it's hard work to get the story together. I mean, you get a bit there, do a lot of reading, sometimes interview people outside China. Hong Kong is still okay, and I have some very good contacts there. And then experts in North America and Europe, and then travel a lot and go to the provinces, go to small places, interview business people, how's your business doing, and then in the end, if things go right, you have a picture for one story where you could be like 90% sure it's correct, but it's challenging.
When you said you interview business people, I assume you're talking about Chinese businessmen, right, or businesswomen. What about expatriate businessmen? Are they sources also? Are they ready to talk?
They are ready to talk. I mean, if you take international companies, multinationals, small and medium size from North America and also Europe, they are ready to talk. They're facing challenges. And I mean, the one thing is they, in many cases, get better access to government officials as they are not journalists. And and then you get like secondhand information from them, like what the let's say the Minister of Commerce tell you when you ask him about problems transferring data outside China to your headquarters and so on. So you get some ideas from that. And then of course what we always do is like we talk to these foreign business people to get a picture, to get an idea how the economy is doing. And they telling us, okay, orders are down, are up. I mean, the main thing that I hear now is like local competition is becoming really, really intense. Like that is the positive side of the development in China. Very good Chinese companies now, especially in green tech and so on. So big challenges for foreign companies is local competition, good products, cheap prices. So they struggle with that. And but then on the other hand is like what you hear since 12, 18 months already is like all this de-risking activities, and companies are really doing it. You know, they're really concerned about geopolitical risks. Taiwan is always an issue. So what they do is like they try to move operations where they can. I mean, it's not always possible, but where they can to other locations. And so yes, by talking to expats, representatives of international companies, it definitely helps.
How do you gauge public opinion in China? I'm not sure if up to today surveys are illegal. I mean, so how do you know what people are thinking?
What people are thinking is like, okay, you get a lot through social media, for example, is because social media is very important. That's where people can air their anger, frustration. I mean, to give you an example, we had about a month ago or something, we had the announcement that ticket prices for the high-speed trains will be increased on 4 connections, and there was so much anger and outbursts of frustration where people say our salaries are declining already, and now they're hiking the prices for train tickets, and so there was a lot of outburst on the internet. That's how you get it. And then, of course, by talking to as many people as possible. I mean, like my friends and Chinese friends, and we always talk like how's things going. I know artists, musicians, and going out, meet them, have dinner together, and then you get in. You never get the complete picture, of course, but at least you have you get an idea what the climate is like, and it's not really promising and good.
Part of the reason why you can't really get the complete picture is, as I understand it, there are keyboard warriors funded by the state, right? I mean, they censor all that sort of thing. So how do you read social media? You have favorite sites? How do you make sense of it? Obviously, you need to know the language, but how do you make sense of what you read on social media?
Of course, yeah. You need to know the language, and of course Weibo is very important. Weibo is like what is Twitter in the Western world is Weibo in China, and so when something happens, you have to be really fast because after a few hours everything is being censored and shut down, and so. But the thing is, my take and my interpretation is there is anger among the ordinary people, and but you have to catch it really fast, and then you can say like, okay, there's a lot of frustration among the ordinary people, and you can see that in the streets in China. You know, there's so much police now everywhere, and they are really worried that something could happen. I mean, we had this a couple of months ago, the gas explosion outside Beijing, like 100 kilometers, Hebei province. I mean, people were just like they were outraged then because they suspected there was some problem with the construction site. So these discussions are being shut down very fast after a few hours or something. But if you constantly observe this, you get an idea about the mood in the country and among the people.
One of the things that I found out that really startled me was that protest is very much a part of Chinese life. Up to now, do you still have all these thousands of local protests?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to come back to my stint in Beijing between 2007 and 2011. It was like during those years, you had protests everywhere for land grab, for example, was a big issue.
Or the river.
The river pollution issues. I remember there was one big thing in Fujian. I mean, they had protests with like tens of thousands of people in the street.
That's right.
Delivery of apartments. People bought apartments. They got the apartment, and then like the windows were not built in, and they took to the street. And the government responded to it. They responded to it during those years, where they said, "Okay, we try to mediate, and we give you some." So they always try to avoid escalation, and they let people protest just to give them a chance to let off steam. Is a bit different today. There are still, what I hear, there are still local protests. I mean, now the big issue that we have now is like people invested in some investment products or something.
Right.
The money is gone. They don't get the money back because the banks are in a very bad state because of the real estate crisis. So that is a big issue where people take to the streets. We had a big thing in Chengdu, I think, in Zhengzhou, in Henan province, and so it's happening. What we don't get anymore is like exact numbers or something. Before, like 10 years ago, we would like through different sources in Hong Kong and in mainland China have a very clear picture how many. Now it's become more difficult. I mean, my take is there's a lot happening in terms of protests. Many are very small, but the local governments, they try to really shut down that, like control information, and so it's difficult to get a clear picture, but they are happening.
Is it possible to speak of public opinion about Taiwan? What is the Chinese public's opinion about Taiwan?
Depends on, I mean, if I talk to like ordinary people, what you call in China like the Laobaixing, the ordinary, I mean, they're very much like, let's say, taxi drivers or food delivery guys. So more or less like low education, and they very patriotic. I mean, they would tell you all the government propaganda, the official version, and of course, as in any other country, is different if you talk to more like the elite people, educated. They would have a more differentiated picture and opinion and say, like, okay, Taiwan is an issue, but it's not easy. It's not easy to solve, and you can have real, serious discussions about this and argue about that. But I mean, all in all, I would say like the opinion within the population is like, is a part of China, have to be unified.
But is it like top of mind? Is it
It's not. It's not top of mind.
It's not
No,
top
no,
of
no.
mind.
It's not top of mind. Not top of mind. I mean, right now is the economic situation. Jobs, university graduates finding no jobs, shrinking salaries. This is top of mind right now.
What is public opinion about the Philippines?
Is not, I mean, not many people in China seem to be aware of it. I mean, Taiwan, yeah, it's constantly mentioned in the media. Of course, the Chinese state-controlled media also, the Philippine issue is being mentioned, sure, and discussed. But if I talk to people like my friends and is not, they don't really have an opinion on that. Is on the list of important issues, is more or less further down in the list, I would say.
What do your readers expect from your stories? I mean, what kind of issues are they interested in?
Our readers, they very much interested in like society stories, like ordinary people. How do they cope with daily life, with the challenges? How do they tackle like difficulties in their personal environment and in their work life? And to give you an example, I mean, I did a long story just a couple of weeks ago about obesity among the young generation, and why is it like this, and too much
Is that
cell
a
phone
problem
use.
in China now?
It is a problem. If you compare the official figures to other countries, it's a serious problem in China. But more, and I interviewed young people who were really obese, you know, overweight, heavily overweight, and they like frustrated. They want to change it, but this the lifestyle over the past 10 years, like ordering food for home, eat at home on the sofa, play with the cell phone for like 10 hours a day or something. So our readers are very much interested in these issues, but that's definitely not all. I mean, the other thing is what they very interested in is like industries where China is doing quite well, like battery technology, EV, and wind,
tech,
solar, green tech. So we can see it from, I mean, we have rankings like what people read and how much time they spend on one story. So that is definitely an interest. And then, of course, international politics, all this decoupling discussion
Are they interested in an interpretation of what the official positions are in China? It's like, they can read the China Daily for themselves, but then do they ask, maybe you can explain exactly what they mean by this?
Yeah, I mean, what we have to, of course, what you have to do as a reporter in China, you have to read all these official documents, and they're accessible. You can get them. I mean, especially what Xi Jinping says about the economy, what he says about culture, about international relations, like Global Development Initiative, Global Civilization Initiative, and so on. So it's possible to get an idea what the government really thinks, also what they think, where they want the country to go over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And
So that would be an accurate source for government thinking.
Definitely. I mean, these papers, they are accessible. Sometimes they're being released few weeks, a few months later, but you can get everything if you read carefully, and then you get an idea what the Chinese leadership wants. And then, of course, it's our job to interpret this and then to tell our readers what does it mean for Europe, what does it mean for United States, what does it mean for European companies, where will the country go with regard to these government policies. I mean, the one thing that I'm working on right now is the United Nations Future Summit, which will take place end of September. And what does China want to bring to this? Because this will be a summit discussing the reform of the United Nations. And China is very actively pushing its initiatives to become part of the United Nations reform. So very interesting.
It is very interesting. I think, and maybe China sees itself as in a unique position now to help reframe the entire international system.
Exactly. That's what they want. And we have to face it. They're making progress. They're making progress with their initiatives. I mean, Xi Jinping was in Serbia, was in Hungary, and he lined up the leaders behind his initiatives. So developing countries. Now, just today, the Chang'e 6, the spacecraft will land in Inner Mongolia today, bring samples from the dark side of the moon. And so China has a long-term plan for exploring outer space, moon, and then probably Mars. And China is aligning other countries, Nicaragua, Thailand, Russia. They will join China with this. So these initiatives, things like this, with those, China manages to unite other countries behind it. And then we haven't not yet talked about BRICS, which is another initiative. So they're making progress.
I want to backtrack a bit and talk about what we read in the official state-controlled press and related to the Philippines. The last time I was in Beijing was just a few weeks before the arbitral award came out. And every day, the China Daily was filled with opinion describing the Philippines as a bully, right? I mean, bullying China and so on. And it was difficult for me, first of all, to appreciate like how a small country can be considered the bully. Is the experience, the so-called century of humiliation of China, is that part of the explanation why, first of all, they can paint a small country like or a medium-sized country like the Philippines as a bully, and also why they're more assertive in the South China Sea?
I mean, the one thing is China has a clear plan and a clear strategy, like where they want the country to go. I mean, Xi Jinping is always talking about the great rejuvenation of the country, and he really wants to bring China back to not to the world stage, but to the center of the world stage. There's a clear vision, a clear plan. If you read all these documents, you can clearly see it. Second thing is, I mean, China has always been doing this, like even before Xi Jinping already. Like when something happened, they always came up with like history and foreign countries try to humiliate us, and it's always this formula where they come, oh, you have hurt the feelings of the Chinese people, and when something happened, not only with Asian countries like Philippines or Vietnam, but also with European countries. So they always have played this card. In my view, this is just a strategy. This is rhetoric. They don't, I don't know, I would not say they don't mean it, but they use it. They use history, opium wars, and foreign forces coming into China to get their way in the end.
I want to go back to another thing that you said earlier. I was struck by the obesity crisis. It turns out this is the young generation in China. What else is international coverage of China missing? I mean, that's a very important story, but it's hardly.
You're talking about examples now?
Yeah, examples. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing is I'm working on a story right now about shrinking population, but then I want to bring it down. I want to concentrate it on young Chinese women, why they don't want to have children anymore. And I mean, the newest development, the latest development is what I found out is that now Chinese authorities, they have started calling up young Chinese women to tell them, please have children. You're still not married, you don't have children, please go for it. As far as I know, it's only happened to female people from like government institutions, party members, not like ordinary, but it is happening. So, and then you start thinking of like doing a story, okay, feminism in the broadest sense, don't want to have children, but the government's starting to give pressure to them now. And I think this is a topic like where you can show to the readers like what's going on in the minds of the young generation, in that case young women. And so just in Shanghai I interviewed some of them. Very interesting topic, a bit like obesity, but that is like what our readers also want, like mindset of the young generation, their problems, their challenges, their sorrows, their problems. And so yeah, those are the stories.
What about green tech? I mean, the business pages are full of stories about, electric vehicles in China, outpacing those in the West and so on, especially Tesla. But how is green tech affecting like the ordinary citizen? Is the average citizen in China aware that they're making great strides in?
Yeah, many of them are. Many of them are, and it makes them proud. And especially for me as I work for a Swiss paper, but I have a German passport. Automotive industry in Germany very important. We know
yes,
this.
We've heard of a few brands.
Yeah, you see, and then
Germany.
of course they go like, if I talk to the people in China, they say, yeah, you see, now we've got NIO and Xiaopeng and BYD and so on. It makes them proud, and where they go like, the feeling is a bit, which is. I mean, I just talked to somebody in Shanghai, I think it was like, it's always been like, oh, we look to the West, we admire the West, the United States, Coca-Cola, Western culture and Western products. This is changing. People are proud now, they have their own brands. They're successful in certain businesses, like as we said, EV and battery technology, green tech. It makes them proud, they like to talk about this.
I want to end our conversation. I mean, actually, I have a lot more questions, but it's time to bring it to a close. By talking about how we should understand China's behavior in the South China Sea and in the West Philippine Sea, I want to ask first, is there an appetite for war among the Chinese public? Is war even an option?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, there's, just let's talk about Taiwan again for a moment. It's like, they're not sure that they would be able to win a possible war. They're not sure. There's so much problems within the PLA, corruption, and they just had the work conference last week with the Central Military Commission where she spoke. There's structural problems within the army. He doesn't want a military conflict with Taiwan, definitely not, because he's not sure he can win it. Second thing, if it would happen, he would pay a very high price. In my view, the conflict with the Philippines is way more riskier. Than the Taiwan thing, I would say. I mean, we've just seen it last week, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Monday last week, and I mean, if things like this happen more often, or there's an accident or something. I mean, everybody in China will tell you the Philippine issue is way more riskier than risky than the Taiwan
In what
issue.
sense is it riskier?
That something could happen, that there could be an escalation. I mean, last Monday there was also,
That's right.
people ask, I mean, was this attack, was it already an element of war, of armed attack? And I mean, at some point, the United States would have to jump in, would have to come in at some point. So
Does the ordinary citizen know about the mutual defense treaty within the Philippines and
the
United
ordinary
States?
people don't know.
No,
The ordinary people
but
don't know.
how do they see the U.S.?
They, of course, I mean, this is public opinion, it's fair to say, it's not, is right to say, it's probably not, I mean, we wouldn't agree with this, but there's a strong opposition against the United States in whatever they do. They are spying, they are
Yeah.
aggressive, they try to keep China down, so
And you know, some of that is true.
some of that is true. Definitely. I just had a very interesting discussion in Shanghai with the CEO of a Chinese CEO, and we talked about Iraq, we talked about Afghanistan. I mean, I would say like whatever comes out of DC right now is just to keep China down, which is also not good. I mean,
right.
I
Yeah.
wrote an article about this a couple of weeks ago. So, but in the general population, yeah, there's like, I would not say hostility towards the United States, but they wouldn't say not a good word about the United States.
Maybe we can end on this particular note. How would that risk materialize? What would bring us there?
You're talking about the Philippines again,
Yes,
China,
yes,
right?
it-
Yeah. Another boat collision, a Philippine getting killed in an accident or something. I mean, I don't dare to make any clear
Sure.
prediction, but we have, but if we have real casualties or something in an accident or in a collision or whatever, or like what we had last week, then things could get very ugly. I hope they don't get ugly, but they could. There's a potential.
Thank you, Matthias Kamp of the New Zürcher Zeitung. This has been a most helpful and even eye-opening discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.
And that's it for us today. The next step for engaged citizens, as always, is to take a more active part in rebuilding and protecting our democracy. Thank you. This is John Nery. See you in the public square.